Hello, everybody. This is Pascal from Neutrality Studies, coming to you with a special episode on the ongoing and unfortunately still escalating conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. Here with me to clarify what's going on is Dr. Digby Wren. Based in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, Dr. Wren has been connected to the region for decades. He runs a geopolitical risk advisory firm and is the former external relations advisor to the president of the Royal Academy of Cambodia. He's also the publisher of the very successful Substack Analysis, the long Mekong, as you can see right behind him. Dr. Wren, welcome back.
Welcome. Yeah, it's really nice to be back on the show, Pascal. I really enjoy your show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Digby. And we talked about half a year ago or a year ago last time, and I'm really glad that you agreed to give us your take at what's happening. And I also reached out to you because you are an Australian citizen, although you're living in Cambodia. So I do think you have somewhat of a third-party perspective on this entire region. Yeah, because like some neutral analysis is important right now on Twitter. What we see is like, oh, pro Cambodia, oh, pro Thailand, which is absolutely dumb. But can you give us a rundown of what's actually occurring right now as we speak on this Saturday, July 26th in Japan and Phnom Penh?
Yeah. So, well, the key thing, I suppose, back to your point just now about the events, right? So everybody's up pro Cambodia or pro Thailand or pro something. But yeah, it's a series of events. It's not as if this is just new. This has been going on for quite a long time. These sort of border skirmishes, well, at least since the 1990s, and even before, really. But this sort of current series originally is about a whole lot of 7 sites on their shared border. But that shared border is up in what they call the Emerald Triangle, so northwest Cambodia, northeast Thailand, up where there's the juncture of Laos as well. So that's kind of the area. So it's, we're talking about mountainous forests, not easy to navigate. So it's been going on up there. So now these places are these temples, right, that mark these sites. And so these temples are Hindu temples. They're really old. They're ancient Khmer temples, because what people don't realize was that the Khmer Empire used to be a lot larger, and stretching all the way down to what is now South Vietnam was originally Khmer Empire, and parts of what is Thailand now up in the northeast and northwest, that was also part of the Khmer Empire. So that's why you have these constructions, these temple constructions on the mountains and things like that. So that's sort of a historical context. But the real problem came, of course, with colonialism, and it was the French and the British that sort of split, set all the borders. This is not a new problem, this happening everywhere in Africa and, the Himalayas and everywhere, all these sort of British and French borders, Sykes-Picot and all that stuff. So they've done the same thing here. Thailand wasn't really colonized, but it was sort of cut down from its sort of largest sort of empire stretch, which was in the 19th century. And so it's never been happy about losing what it had taken from the Khmer, from the Cambodians, during its expansion in the 17th and 18th century. And so they lost all of that. The French and the British cut that back, carved Cambodia out in the middle. So now, like in the present, if you're a Cambodian, you think of yourself as being squeezed between the crocodile of Vietnam, which is that, long, thin crocodile all the way down the coastline on the South China Sea, and the tiger of Thailand. So those are the two big ones. And so this was supposed to be all very good and constructive within the ASEAN format, within the RCEP formats, and internal trade with ASEAN. And so Cambodia was going to benefit enormously because it's directly between the tiger of Thailand, but also an industrial tiger, and Vietnam, also an industrial crocodile. So that was going to be great for Cambodia. It's going to be a node, a hub for light manufacturing, components, and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit like Switzerland benefiting from being right between Germany and France and Italy, and being the connecting hub, right? And that can be great for a landlocked country.
Exactly. And geographically, Cambodia is really in the center of ASEAN. So the port of Sihanoukville, for example, is really the closest distance for transport across the Gulf of Thailand, for Bangkok, Thailand, for Malaysia, and for Vietnam. So Cambodia, actually, and I think last time I was on your show, we talked about how Cambodia really is geographically super well placed, just like Switzerland. And that's, neutrality is important, right? So that seems to have flown out the window. I suppose the first question we should ask is, how did this recording between the Shinawatra Prime Minister, I have a lot of trouble pronouncing these Thai names.
Yeah, it's Shinawatra, right? And we need to give the background for this one. So there was a phone call, right, about 3 weeks ago between the the female prime minister, Miss Shinawatra,
Yes.
of Thailand, and the prime minister of Cambodia, Mr.
Hun Manet.
Hun Manet. And funnily enough, they're both the children of the patriarchs of their countries, Mr. Shinawatra on the Thai side and Mr. Hun Sen on the Cambodian side, right?
Well, that's right. So, and they've known each other since they were teenagers. So it's not as if they, the two prime ministers are not strangers. These families have been quite close for about 30 years. So the Hun family in Cambodia, which has held power in real terms, I suppose, for at least 38 years. And the Shinawatra clan in Thailand, who've had 3 prime ministerships.
Yeah, but on and off, actually, because they were even kicked out of the country sometimes because they're quite hotly hated by one part of the Thai political establishment.
Yeah, so we need to think about the structure of Thailand's politics and the structure of Cambodia's politics. There's basically a triangulation in both countries, and the triangulation in Thailand is the king, the army, and the civilian government. Civilian government is the weakest of the 3. And of course, no government can exist anywhere without the military. So the royalist and conservative factions in Thailand side with the military always. And so whenever there's a civilian government they're not happy with, or that's too friendly to the Americans or too friendly to the Chinese, or I don't know, not friendly enough to somebody, they tend to get pushed out and the military takes over again. And of course, the military is also going to not like civilian governments that try to adjust legislation to create greater control over the military. And so that's what the Shinawatras have just done, because of the 3 prime ministers that the Shinawatras have had. So that's the father, Thaksin, who's very friendly. He's a billionaire, very friendly with Hun Sen. And his sister, Inglak, and then she was also kicked out by the military, so that's 2. And then now the daughter. So, and now she's been pushed aside through the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court that's filled with conservative royalists.
Yeah, and the reason she was pushed out, or she was like suspended for the moment, is because she had this talk with Hun Manet. And in that phone call, she actually said she criticized her army, for their actions. And it seems that Hun Manet now leaked that phone call to the press, and that created huge upheaval in Thailand. It was like, oh, how dare she criticize ourselves? I mean, our prime minister criticized our army.
Right. So in Cambodia, it's the structure is slightly different. So you've got the party CPP, that's the party of Hun Sen political party. They're by far dominant, and then you have the army, right? So they're together, but the king is virtually powerless in Cambodia, virtually powerless. So the triangulation is slightly different, but so they had this conversation because of a small skirmish that was held up on, as I said to you before, up very close to the Lao-Thai-Cambodian border. And there was a series of little events, like a general hosting a group of families. Then they went across the border into Cambodia, all these Thai families. And, they promote this idea that, this used to be Thailand. Well, which I suppose it was part of the Thai empire for a little while.
And let me just add one thing, because I think it's important to know that the ICJ awarded the temple that is kind of in the center of attention to Cambodia, but the surrounding area not, right? The surrounding area is supposed to be demilitarized. So there's still, on both sides, there's a question, where's the actual border?
That's right, yeah. That was done in 1962. And so they got a ruling on the actual temples. Not just one, but a few of them. But yeah, you're right. The area around that, I'm not quite sure how big it is now. I've forgotten. I think it's about 6 it might be 42 square kilometers. I'm not really sure. Anyway, so that is still, there was no ruling on that. So that's still in dispute. That's been, just going on forever, right? But the thing was that up until, let's just say the last year, relations between the three Gulf of Thailand countries, so Cambodia, Thailand, and Malaysia, they were working really closely together. Hun Sen, Thaksin Shinawatra, and Anwar Ibrahim, they had sort of formed a small group, small triangulation, and they were working towards solving a lot of the problems in relation to the Gulf of Thailand gas and oil rights, and they were making progress on that. They were also making progress on Myanmar and the implementation of the ASEAN 5-point consensus, and that was kind of seeming to work. And then there was another thing that happened, which was the announcement of Cambodia going to build a canal from the Mekong straight down into the Gulf of Thailand, which the Vietnamese were very unhappy about. Now, one has to remember that the Vietnamese have a big say in the Cambodian economy, and that canal was not seen very well in Vietnam. And you'll just follow me here because it'll get to the point. And the point here is that so Vietnam's not been happy about this relationship. That Cambodia is going to be sort of cut loose, if you like, from Vietnam. And so this will come back to us at the end when we talk about who benefits from the conflict between Cambodia and Thailand. Anyway, so this phone call happened between Hun Sen and the Prime Minister, the current daughter, right, 36-year-old Shinawatra. And in that, yes, she criticized the military commander of the 2nd military area, which is the area involved here. And this guy's name is Busin. He is a creature of the former military dictatorships or juntas that were in power that kicked out the other Shinawatras. So in 20, I think it's 2008, 2014, right? And now, so she's criticized them. But you have to remember that the head of the army is also appointed by the former military government back in 2016, I think, like that. So that conservative royalist military faction is strong, and because the coalition government in Thailand has got 2 parties that are royalist military parties in their coalition. Now, one of them's left, but they still have a majority with that military-backed party. So what we have to imagine here is that there's internal problems in Thailand, a power struggle in Thailand related to the military. Exactly what that is, I suppose, is going to be determined. We can talk about that today. And then external pressures. Now, the external pressures relate, there's so many of them. The tariffs from the USA, ASEAN, Myanmar, destabilization there. Vietnam's not happy about losing some control over the Cambodian market. I think also related to infrastructure, the opening up of all ASEAN to railways and highways and so forth. That's also, I think, a little bit feeding into this. So there's I think 3 external factors, and what is the internal factor in Thailand is the military wanting to not be controlled by the civilian government. That seems to be the thing that set it off. And so where are we going now? Are we going to get another military coup, or are we going to get the government's going to be slightly destabilized and there's going to be a power shuffle inside the existing government, but the military will have more control? I think that's probably where it's going.
Yeah, and I need to add, the last Ingluk Shinawatra was the aunt of the prime minister. I mean, the one who was just ousted. She got ousted, and then we had, I think it was 7 years, wasn't it? 7 years of military control, where the military actually appoints all of the parliament, right? And then basically then had that transition back into a semi, 50-50 kind of control of parliament only about 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
3 years ago, right?
So you've got a coalition government, and in that coalition you've got royalist and military partners. So they're not necessarily going to help the Shinawatras.
And plus the Shinawatra is the leader of the second largest party. I mean, the largest one that won the most share actually got kind of sidelined
Yeah.
and parked because they had an anti-royalist leader. And so she was always she was a weak prime minister, but the strongest thing she had going is, of course, being the daughter of Mr. Shinawatra, who came back. He was exiled for a long time, came back, and is regarded as kind of just like Hun Sen in Cambodia, the unofficial patriarch of the party.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, so yeah, well, you know what? To be honest with you, I think both prime ministers, the Shinawatra and Hun Manet, they're both very inexperienced, and they're both young, and they're both, yes, the prodigy, the prodigy of their their fathers, their prime minister fathers. So, but I think both of them are a little bit inexperienced, and they may have not guided this on their own too well. But we should go back to the phone call, how that was released, right?
Yes, please. And also, can you also talk about the Cambodian side and Hun Manet and the power structure inside maybe there? Is it Hun Sen still in charge, or is he faded out?
Hun Sen is the chairman of the party, the CPP, Cambodian People's Party, which is by far the most powerful party in the country. And he holds that role, and he is also president of the Senate. So he still has an enormous amount of real power, and he's guiding his son's sort of assumption or ascension to the prime ministership, and he needs to go through, I suppose, another election cycle. So once Hun Manet's got at least 5 to 10 years experience, then I think probably, it could go on longer. I mean, let's be real and say Cambodian economy is pretty stable, still got, more than 5% growth, even with all the external problems, tariffs and so forth. So, the area is still growing. It's not about that. And one can say the same about Thailand. Yesterday I looked at the import-export stock market and currency. Now, the currency has taken a bit of a hit, but in terms of the stock market, nothing's happened at all. It just hasn't changed. So we can say that there's no causal effect coming from capital flows. So, can get rid of that. And strangely enough, import-export too hasn't really changed very much. So that doesn't seem to be a dominant effect either. So yeah, we really need to concentrate on the internals. Now in Cambodia, there is no internal struggle, but it's true that Hun Manet is not super strong yet. I mean, he's a young man and his father's still in power. And there are some institutional struggles inside Cambodia, between ministries. That's traditionally and historically true, I suppose. So certain families, vying for positions in the government, that sort of thing. And that's pretty well settled down, but it's still ongoing. It's still sort of going. Now, the strange part is where this phone call was released to the public. Now, Hun Sen said that 80 people were on the list, were able to listen to this phone call, and somebody who didn't like the Thai government released the phone call. That's what he said, the original 9 minutes. And in that 9 minutes, yes, the Shinawatra said that Busan, this Second Army fellow in Thailand, who's in charge of the border area, was the problem, and they're acting against the interests of the civilian government. Well, so this is not really news, I mean, I think everybody already knows that, but it was released publicly. Now, the strange part about that is, can anybody trust Hun Sen if you're going to have a private conversation with him and then the conversation is going to be released? I think there's going to be an element of distrust related to Hun Sen now.
The question, though, is, was it intentionally done in order to destabilize the Thaksin government, or is it a saboteur? So, I mean, the difference is actually quite important. But either way, you cannot trust the communication channels anymore. And obviously, if she said that, it meant she had that trust that this would remain private.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, that's still unknown. I mean, I don't know that for sure who released it. Was it a design, or was it, betrayal of some sort, somebody, letting it go. But I suppose, there's nothing really revealing in this phone call. Not really. I mean, the worst thing that she says that, is this thing about the army, right? Well, pretty well anybody that's looking at Thai politics knows that this is what's going on in the army. But this guy, I had a look at him, and I wrote an article in Substack about 2 weeks ago, and had a good close look at his career. He was promoted through the military junta period, and he's just been promoted again. So he's the head of Second Army Group, and he is
The one at the border, the Thai guy at the border.
right, yeah, very nationalist, and he's from there. He was born there. He grew up there. He came through the ranks. He served in the army in that area, so he knows it really well. It's not, it's not like he's just been brought in and put in charge. He really, really knows his stuff up there. And he has been, yes, a provocateur, in fact. Almost all his actions have been provocative, but he's been promoted for that. So that tells you that inside the royalist conservative military factions in the Thai government, they're supporting this. So, and they were supporting it before it turned into what it is now. So that means that they wanted it to happen. So it's been by design of some description to protect this furor. So that's the question then is, well, who benefits? Is it really an internal thing, or is it a larger external? Is there something larger external going on?
Yeah, and also then on the Cambodian side, like at the moment, both parties say the other one shot first. And one of the things we know is that on both sides we had landmines exploding, and we had shots fired at each other. That has happened also in the past and repeatedly. But what we are seeing in my view, for the first time, or I haven't heard about it before, is heavy artillery. And we've seen these videos from the Cambodian side, like shooting these, I don't know what, multiple rocket launchers, right? And hitting even a gas station and a hospital complex in Thailand. And this is the Thais are boiling over with anger at being not just military targets, but civilian targets being hit. Can you speak to that a bit?
Yeah, well, none of that's good. And actually, Hun Sen, they've reintroduced conscription into Cambodia, which is a sort of interesting thing to do.
Right now, I mean, recently or in reaction to this?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, he made an announcement saying conscription has been reintroduced. So I think women can be excused, but all young men must do it. So they're obviously trying to prop up their numbers a little bit. I had a look at the command structure of the Cambodian army. They've sent their second top general to this area, and they've given him some artillery and rockets, and they've been firing them. Now, we're still not in kind of organized divisional level or even regiment level war or anything like that. It's nothing like that yet. We're talking about fairly random. I mean, I'm not going to say what they chose as targets was random, but what I'm saying is that just the use of one piece of artillery, one rocket launcher, one death. Originally, there was only one death, one soldier killed
on the Cambodian side. Yes.
Yeah, and by troops under the command of this General Busan, right?
Yeah, and also like the rocket launchers we have seen so far, to me, seem not connected to this larger kind of radar system. It's more like the thing that you just aim in a direction and then you just fire and it hits whatever it hits, which is bad enough, but it doesn't seem like a coordinated approach by Phnom Penh in order to blow up a gas station.
No, it's not that. No, that it's still fairly, let's just call it ad hoc.
But that's what makes it so dangerous, because now it's the individual idiot commanders on the ground that might kick off much worse things, right? Because these people are not under, I mean, they are under command structures, but then they just act on the ground.
Yeah, so now we're looking at kind of battalion level, so like 100 soldiers to 1,000 soldiers maximum, kind of operating, building trenches and, setting up sort of security areas and so forth. Look, my understanding is that there's very little in terms of real armaments being taken up to the border area, besides the fact that it's difficult to get there. And if Cambodia doesn't have a huge air force or even helicopter or even drones, they don't really have a very sophisticated border patrol functionality in terms of military. I mean, I think it'd be better if they did. Really, maybe they're using this as an excuse to partly do that. Because they actually need to do that. and I think Thailand also. So look, what do we know? We know that there's some weapons up there. Yes, the commander on the ground might make mistakes, but it seems that the Boosin, the Thai guy, he knows what he's doing, because every step has been fairly well calculated, and it's just incited and built it up a little bit. But there seems to be some kind of plan in this on the Thai side. Definitely, there's some kind of control going on. But can I talk a little bit about the externals?
Yes, exactly. Because like I want to ask also, there's always this suspicion that the others, the Americans and maybe the Chinese, might have some skin in the game. Although what I know from my own visits to Thailand is that the Americans have much larger complexes and CIA bases actually in the others on the other side of Thailand, around a huge consulate in Chiang Mai.
Oh, in Chiang Mai on the
That is on the border with Myanmar. So
Yeah.
we are talking about the other side of the border, where I'm not aware about U.S. involvement. But do you know anything?
Well, look, I mean, there's always U.S. involvement. That can't be discounted or discredited. The U.S. is very active, and look, the first sort of trouble was in February, and that was very low key. And I think that was very much related to the internal, political struggle inside Thailand at that point. And then when the Shangri-La thing happened, that was in May, this whole thing just started to take off after Shangri-La, after the Americans had called for, rearmaments and spending more money on guns, et cetera, then suddenly there's this thing's turning into an actual conflict zone, right? So, is there a connection there? I think there is a connection. There's some kind of correlation, but whether it's causal, I can't say. But it's definitely, you can definitely say that you've got Pete Hegseth in Shangri-La in Singapore saying everybody has to spend more. China's really dangerous. Southeast Asia is under threat. And then literally, and he met with Hun Manet, right? In Shangri-La, he met with Hun Manet. And Hun Manet also met with the French. And now the French are also involved in this. Macron is kind of pretending to be a mediator as well. And there was Hun Manet went off to France and visited with the French. And they were also talking about threats in Southeast Asia. And so apparently Hun Manet invited Macron to help mediate. But then what we found out is that the Anwar Ibrahim in Malaysia, of course, had been included in this sort of, he'd been closely involved previously with Thaksin Shinawatra and with Hun Sen. They had a very good relationship, the three of them. So they've obviously been talking again quietly. And Anwar Ibrahim mediated a ceasefire, but the foreign ministry spokesman from Thailand this morning said no. The Thais are not going to accept a ceasefire. So I suppose we're going to see some more ad hoc firing across the border and more troops being moved there. But look, a ceasefire. I mean, it's not as if there's occupied territory at this point in time. They're still kind of obeying or looking at the, sort of respecting the border area, generally speaking. There's some movement, but there's no real fighting yet. So the question is, why don't the Thais want a ceasefire? What do they really want out of this? Do you think they're going to get a temple or going to get a result out of this? Is that what they really want? But in the meantime, what we see is that lots of Thai products have disappeared from shelves in Cambodia, and lots of Vietnamese products have replaced them. So the Vietnamese, I think, have gained some commercial benefits from this, and I wonder if that's not related in a larger way. It's hard to say, but it is clear that Vietnam has a big say in the government here in Cambodia. They do have a big say. And I haven't seen Vietnam saying very much about this, other than they should just get to peace. I mean, that's really, they're kept out of it at all. But they are definitely benefiting commercially, and it's giving them more influence politically as well, I think.
Probably, but when we look at this from an ASEAN perspective, this is kind of a worst case scenario, because the last thing you want is your members openly fighting with each other. It's already bad enough that in Myanmar you have a civil war, but the rest, Anwar Ibrahim, Malaysia, but also Indonesia, they pride themselves of trying to keep ASEAN out of these geopolitical shenanigans, right? And maintaining a neutral position. Actually, Anwar Ibrahim even says so. And now two of your major, I mean, at least Thailand is a huge factor in ASEAN, right? Going into open conflict. So if we suppose that there are also outside interests involved, then ASEAN, it cannot be an ASEAN interest, right? ASEAN should have every interest right now at making sure that this dies down as quickly as possible and we get back to negotiations between the two.
There can be no doubt about that. ASEAN centrality is the most important thing. Everybody in ASEAN knows that. Every government, every minister, they all know that. So that's topmost in their minds, for sure. Nobody wants to split up ASEAN. On the other hand, the Americans are not particularly happy that ASEAN maintains its neutrality trade bloc. Saying, and it effectively provides the largest trading partner for China, and it protects China's southern flank.
So without any proof of any kind of involvement, we would say that if there is a conflict, an open conflict, and both sides are going to buy more weapons, that would probably potentially benefit the standing of the United States, which then has a strong argument to say, like, look, Thailand, you should have us as your protector, right? We should have a few bases more and a few U.S. personnel more. I mean, without having any proof that that's what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's right. You can't actually prove that, but what we can say, what we do know for sure, is that there is a high level of American involvement both in Myanmar and in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So that one is maritime, one is continental in real terms. Myanmar is basically continental, does have a coastline, of course, but it's a very large country, and that's been destabilized for at least 10 years. And so now destabilizing Thailand, that's going to fracture ASEAN for sure. Look, do we want ASEAN to end up looking like Europe?
Of course not. Nothing should look like Europe. I mean, it's bad enough to have one Europe.
Well, so I think that's what the Americans have effectively achieved if they've subordinated Europe to their global plans. And I think they're trying to do the same in ASEAN. I think that's true. Whether or not there's a finger in the pie in Bangkok, twisting things here, that's very hard to say. There is no physical evidence of that. I don't have any statements to that effect. But look, there's definitely some kind of link and correlation to that. Finding the causal link, direct causal link. Well, I think there'd be a lot of people looking for that right now.
Yeah.
But for China's point of view, I can't see that it's particularly beneficial in any way. It doesn't help them at all. It's not good for business, and that's their primary concern. It's not good for stability. That's another primary concern. So yeah, it doesn't look good.
And just since we are in the realm of speculation, and again, I have no indication for this, but Mr. Thaksin Shinawatra has given speeches when he came back, indicating that he's online also with Ibrahim and so on. The neutralist part, saying like, we are not pro-Chinese, but we maintain strategic independence, and if internally the military, which always has had closer relationship with the Americans, if there's a power struggle between them, then there would be a logic to strengthening the military versus the Shinawatra government.
Right. So that would be as you just said before, that would be quite possibly the idea that you're suddenly going to see an increase in budget, right, in defense budget.
Yeah.
Because all of the ASEAN countries only pay about 1.5% of GDP, and what are the Americans asking them to do? Spend 3.5.
It's a stupid metric. You don't decide on a budget and then what kind of threats can we invent. You look at the problems you have, and the best thing is if you don't have threats, then you don't need a big budget. But that's not the logic. But sorry.
But now we have a threat, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so is that the causal part? Is that the thing? Is that Hegseth going to Singapore, Shangri-La, saying you have to spend more money where it and so, well, let's just have this little tie-up that's really emanating from the Thai side. You can't say that this was started by the Cambodians. I think that would be very hard to justify. I think you'll find that it's particularly sits in the camp of this Thai General Bu Sin. Now, he retires in September. So the outcome, in my mind, is probably post-September. So he'll no longer be a serving general in the army. And as we all know in Thailand, what happens to generals that do sort of, things that the conservatives and nationalists want is they get promoted in the next government. So I think we can see that he's being positioned for a position in the government, either as the next head of the government or perhaps head of the army or defense minister, something like that. That's what it's looking like. So the timeline, I think, is probably September. I think Bu Sin has got a lot to do with this general, this lieutenant general. I think he's really part of the whole thing. So I've been looking closely at his promotions and his actions and where he's going to go in September. And it looks like he's being set up for a very high position in the government. And as you said, the military is going to be more pro-American. Yeah, maybe they're going to buy more weapons. Maybe even Cambodia is going to spend more on weapons. I don't know. But theoretically, they're not supposed to be Chinese weapons, right? Or Russian weapons. So the landmines in Cambodia are apparently Russian. I don't know if that's true. And the landmines in Thailand are American. I don't know if that's true.
Do you have any indication of, how the Cambodian side is now looking at this, and if there's Cambodia must have an interest in de-escalating this. This cannot be in the interest of Phnom Penh to have an open dispute. Actually escalating into a war with a neighbor which, at least on paper, has much more firepower than you, right? There must be an interest in de-escalating this. So what is Phnom Penh looking at?
Right? You could have said that about the Ukraine and Russia. Why would you pick on your big neighbor? Yeah, so that's true. I don't think there's any benefit for Cambodia in, which makes me think that, Hun Sen probably didn't deliberately release that recording. Although, it's possible, but I just don't think so. It seems strange to me. But anyway, I don't see any real benefit for Cambodia. It doesn't look good for them with anybody. And they've still got this tariff thing hanging over their head. They have to do that. So, the timing is very strange. I don't believe there are coincidences at any time, Pascal. So, but I can't make those causal connections yet here in Cambodia. But look, it's not good for the economy. It's not good for the populace. But yes, it fills the papers and the media and everything else. And everybody's angry about it on the street. But they can't afford to fight a war. And even if there was a war, they wouldn't be able to win it. And they're fighting in areas where it's jungle. These things are just...
Yeah, but when we take a step back from the rationalist approach, looking at what is good for the nation, and go toward what is good for the factions, because we can see how in Ukraine the war was of course horrible for Ukraine and Ukrainians and Russians too, but we can see how it was very good for the power elite in Kiev. They amassed money and power, and they managed to grab it, right, and to have this connection to the outside. So sacrificing your country in order then to entrench yourself. And if we start from the idea that the Thai government, the Thai army military wanted to get rid or diminish the Thaksin government, then this was also kind of a win. And on the Cambodian side, is there something to gain from increased nationalism on the street, for the party and so on?
Only in the sense that it might strengthen Hun Manet's position a little bit, because he was seen to be, I won't say, let's just say, inexperienced. So I think this may harden him a little bit, and also help put the army more strongly behind him, under his control. I think that's possible, yes. In terms of economics, it also kind of lines up their economics a little bit. They have to have some discipline in relation to the tariffs, discipline in relation to their military-industrial complex. Very small that it is, but they still have one. And firmer control over the actual army. Yes, I suppose those are ticks for the government in Cambodia. But overall, having difficulties with Thailand inside ASEAN, etc., I think that net negative is larger than any positive they might get internally. I don't think doesn't work very well for them. In terms of inside ASEAN, it seems to me that Vietnam is the big winner out of all of this. They're getting more commercial exposure. They did their deal in tariffs really, really fast. There's a 40% tariff on intermediate goods from China. Cambodia has become a kind of an intermediate transport hub for Chinese goods for all of ASEAN. So that could have something to do with it as well. But then Thailand also, it's got a booming kind of industry. They've got new EV factories going up. Basically, but their economy has been a bit of a mess. I mean, let's be honest, their economy is a bit of a mess. These tariffs is not going to help. So yeah, look, all in all, I still think that most of this problem is an internal factional power struggle, as you've just mentioned, inside Thailand. I think that is the number one driver of this, and that there's some external benefits being derived from this by Vietnam just as a local export market, and in political influence inside inside Cambodia. And then, as you said, maybe the American military is getting benefits from this inside Thailand. That's possible too.
And your take at the most likely course of this would, in that case, probably be that we have institutional interests in maintaining some form of skirmishes for time being, but that both sides would probably want to keep it below the level of, outright
like that.
Let's go invade.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. So people are trying to leverage to gain advantage in what we've just discussed. So either economically or politically or militarily, geopolitically. I think, that's what's happening. As you said, they're going to keep it simmering just as long as it's useful. And I suppose you can tie it to, as I said, Bu Sin quitting the army in September and then ready for a civilian political job, the end of the discussion on tariffs and the decision on what the effect will be on intermediate goods from China. And then, the partial destabilization of ASEAN. I worry about that a lot. Myanmar, Thailand, Philippines, not good. I suppose there is one sort of positive side that I can see in here, and that is the BRICS. And that is because Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia are now part of BRICS.
Yes.
So that makes a southern arc around Asia.
But Thailand is a partner country, right?
Right. So I can see that there's no institutional framework within BRICS to kind of organize these sorts of things. So I'm not sure how that can be done, but you can see that both China and Russia and India have a say inside BRICS. And the Philippines is inside that circle, that Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia circle. Philippines is kind of inside that. So I think there might be something going on in that as well that's worthwhile having a look at. And then the last thing that I would mention, I suppose, is UNESCO. The Americans have just withdrawn from UNESCO. And these temple sites that are being fought over by Thailand and Cambodia, they all have UNESCO.
World Heritage.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so if the Americans are not in UNESCO, then they can't be told that, or nobody's going to say, oh, yes, well, it's a heritage site. You can't do these sorts of things. The Americans can say, well, we're not part of UNESCO. We have nothing to do with it. So I don't see that that's good either.
Did you hear any talk about, China, India, Russia as the big close three BRIC states calling on Cambodia and Thailand to negotiate? I mean, if it was possible for BRICS to step in and say, like, we are now going to push for peace, that would and create an institutional setup, a mechanism that could be used again, that would be a great step forward for BRICS.
Yeah, well, BRICS doesn't have an institutional framework for that, to this sort of thing. So where does it go? And we know that the US doesn't like anything multilateral. They just hate it.
Yeah, they don't like anything that pushes toward peace if the opposite increases their standing. So peace breaking out is always a nightmare in Washington.
Yes. Well, the irony of that, right? So, so they don't like any of the multilateral. So it's definitely in the interests of ASEAN to act multilaterally. I think it can be done informally inside the BRICS. That would be probably worthwhile. And not RCEP, I don't think it can be done there, although I think that the Australians could have a positive effect on this if they wanted to. I think the current ambassador here in Cambodia seems to be doing quite a good job, and their soft power has increased sort of quite a lot in the last year. I think they've been very active, and I think the Australians could maybe, just maybe, Gareth Evans, who knows a lot about Cambodia and Thailand and all that sort of stuff. He was just in China. And Anthony Albanese. Look, it might be something that the Australians could get involved in. Why not? Already in there.
Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia pushing for a joint kind of course of action, plan of action that would be something positive from the region.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, even in Japan and South Korea as well. I think they should all be talking about this, and not the Europeans and not the Americans, right? So try and keep it ASEAN folk centrality, and then the larger sort of Asia, East Asia, South East Asia, RCEP countries. Why not?
The question is, of course, how to get to the right people who actually make the decisions, if even the prime minister is not properly in charge over the military forces. So you need a military-to-military approach in one way or another.
That's a good point, Pascal. I think, in terms of the Cambodian military, that's not a problem, but definitely in terms of the Thai military, that is always it's so opaque, right? You can't really see. It's all smoke and mirrors, really. They are so deep in the government and in the economy. You can't, the military in Thailand, it can't be separated. And the king, like the military and the conservatives and the royalists, that can't be separated.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the current king is, let me put it this way, he's not famous for being a prudent or far-sighted personality.
Right.
So there's probably nothing gonna come from his side, but
no, but his followers, his supporters, the conservative royalists, ultranationalists, look, but they're not strong enough to ever get a majority in the government.
No.
Right?
They just lost it. They lost a huge majority to the party that actually wanted to constrain the royal influence, right? Even the lèse majesté, the famous one.
Right.
Yeah, no, but the question to me now is, like, who in the neighborhood has a good enough relationship with the Thai military in order to talk to the people there who would need to be convinced that it's not in their interest to actually keep that simmering, and it should be negotiated away. So if anyone listening has an idea and knows how to create something, please do post.
Yeah. No, that's a hard one, yeah. But there's definitely going to have to be somebody talking to the Thai military. Who that's going to be, I don't know. But look, this is going to simmer. I think this is going to simmer for a while longer. And the word ceasefire has been put out there at least 2 or 3 times now from different sides. China and Vietnam have both called for, stop any kind of fighting whatsoever. Anwar Ibrahim ceasefire, and he's willing to be the mediator. I suppose that's okay.
Yeah, because he's also the head of ASEAN this year.
Right, yeah, he's got the chair of ASEAN, so it makes sense, right? Now, the Philippines gets it next year. Now, that would be a disaster.
Yeah, can you imagine Marcos? Oh, God.
Yeah. So there you go. So you think about that time frame as well. If ASEAN was just sufficiently disrupted and they could hold it until the Philippines chair next year, it doesn't look good for ASEAN. I don't think the Philippines are going to be pro-ASEAN. I don't think they're going to be really helpful at all.
No, because they're mad at ASEAN for not helping them enough in the South China Sea, in the East China Sea, with the islands and so on against China. They're mad at that, which is why they're siding with the Americans.
They don't need any help. What help do they need? I mean, they're choosing this, right? They're acting like a colony. That.
Yeah, but we must say, like, and we are digressing a little bit, but the guy now in The Hague who was extradited to The Hague, the former prime minister. Duterte, he for 6 years tried very, very hard to be as cozy and cuddly to China as possible, and the Chinese didn't seize on that. They just went harder with military power. So it's kind of, it makes sense from the Filipino perspective to say like, hey, this didn't work, so we gotta do something more confrontative, which is not a good thing. It's the Ukrainian route.
It was good for their economy. The Philippine economy is not, the only reason the Philippine economy is doing any good at all is because it's getting so much subsidization from the US.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Okay. Well, we are digressing. This is a whole different topic. But Digby, is there anything we need to add about Cambodia and Thailand that hasn't been said yet?
let's summarize it. So it looks like, in the first instance, it's a internal power struggle from Thailand. That's the first kind of take. The second take is that it strengthens internally in Cambodia. It strengthens the control of the Prime Minister Hun Manet, the younger, right? It helps strengthen his control over the military and possibly the government, generally speaking. I don't see that as a really big thing, but it definitely, I think it does give him a few percentage points of extra influence over those institutionally in the country. Vietnam is benefiting commercially by getting more access into the market in Cambodia, which they were worried about losing because of the canal. And they've also got more political influence in Cambodia because of this. The Americans are going to be happy because they see more fragmentation. Their ally, the Philippines, is going to get the chair next year of ASEAN, so they might be able to continue this kind of fragmentation like they did in Europe, which is my biggest fear. And that the on-the-ground actions, look, there could be some more deaths. So far, how many people have actually died? 1 soldier in the Cambodia, that was the first thing. Then 2 civilians in Thailand, and now the numbers are not clear anymore.
Around 12 or so. It was quite a few civilians on the Thai side, which is why Thailand is now bubbling with hate to Cambodia, which is really bad.
I have no confirmation on total death tolls yet. I think that's still unclear. We can definitely confirm that there was 2 deaths, but I can't confirm 12 deaths or 26 deaths. I've read quite a few numbers. None of that can be confirmed yet.
Okay. Let's say at the moment it's unclear, but there were casualties.
Yeah. There is no mass mobilization yet. These are all very limited, small scale. It's mostly trenches and infantry soldiers and things like that. There are some artillery pieces, some rocket things. There were no, as far as I understand, there's no tanks or anything like that yet. 1 F-16 was sent into the air by the Thais. So at this point, it's lots of signaling, but not really fighting.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. So jostling for influence here, but who exactly is, what this outcome is supposed to be, that is still unknown, I think.
Yeah, and maybe nobody knows, but we need to keep a close eye on it also, and constantly ask the question, cui bono? Because
cui bono, exactly. That's the really important thing. Who is benefiting from this, right?
All right, we will talk about this again. Digby, I thank you very much for your very detailed assessment. Everybody who wants to follow you should go to your Substack, The Long Mekong, and I will put the links into the description. Digby Wren, thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure, Pascal. It's great to be with you again.